UFO aliens are warm, fuzzy, lovable creatures that love mankind, and they give off orbs, and they're here because they love men. And yeah, maybe there is a group of them that loves men, and maybe there's another type that loves men for a different reason, like you like going to Burger King for a burger. I mean, we don't know. So it's all speculation of people that don't know what they're talking about, saying all this stuff. And, I'd rather, get to the nitty gritty. I just can't believe, aliens are connected with Bigfoot and they give off orbs and they're here to save mankind. I just don't believe that.
Well, I don't think that Bigfoot give off orbs, but I've seen enough very convincing video that when people get in meditative states, the energy orbs will come around. And I've seen great videos. I'll give you two extremes. There was one major meditation with, I assume it was a Buddhist group in the Far East, and they were filming this whole thing. And the more that they meditated, and this was a very large group of people, the more these orbs began to show up around them. In a similar way, there was I don't know what they called it now, but it was a psychic Bigfoot conference that was out in Washington, I believe. And they were doing meditation to try to communicate with the Bigfoot. And again, the orbs began to build up. In the case with the ones in the Far East, the orbs became so dense you almost couldn't see the people anymore. It was that intense. Now, there is a lot of very convincing information that when, let's say, human beings or anybody is no longer in a body, and they are actually orbs of light, and that they would be attracted to certain situations. So I wouldn't blow off the whole thing, but I don't believe that the Bigfoot are giving off orbs. I think the people that would be with them and the state of mind they would be in might attract spirits or orbs. The Indians here in this country have talked about that kind of thing for a very long time. I've seen the videos here near the reservation where orbs come around. Never to the extent that I've seen with the meditations with the people in the Far East, because I think they're probably much better at getting quiet and meditative. But I would not dismiss the orbs. I just don't believe that the Bigfoot themselves are giving those off.
Well, I'm not going to say that orbs aren't real. What I'm saying is orbs probably are created from ourselves, from the energy within. That's how I feel. But I don't think that, the aliens are coming down and giving you or me orbs of love. And that's the type of thing I've been hearing, that.
Oh, okay. Well, you're talking something different there.
Yeah. I do think we all give off energy. And that is a fact. But, I just can't believe if you're out in the woods and all of a sudden you see a Bigfoot, it sends you orbs of love, that go down your neck. I've heard this stuff, and I go, wow, this is much as I had a guest on my show recently that is a Bigfoot hunter, and for 20, almost 30 years, he's a Bigfoot hunter. And when I narrowed it down, I said, okay, well, where's some of the places you have gone out and looked for Bigfoot? And have you ever seen one? He goes, no, I do it off the internet. Well, that is not a Bigfoot hunter. I am sorry. That's just somebody reading, a lot of propaganda off the internet.
Yes, I can see why you would laugh at that. That's not a researcher.
Yeah.
It's a type of researcher, but it's not one that you're going to count on.
Well, see, I look at, like I was talking to Dave, this other talk show host, and we were talking, like you work for newspapers. You have a reputation behind you for gathering news and know how to do it. Big difference from somebody that goes and buys a $10 microphone, plugs it in their computer, and starts reading other people's, postings like on Facebook or wherever, and all of a sudden starts passing that off as the truth. And that happens a lot.
And the other danger, and this is a warning to everybody, sometimes you can get some good starting points, let's say, off of YouTube. But then you need to start tracking that back as far as you can and get to the original source of things. And many times when that happens, the source proves to be absolutely worthless.
Oh, yeah.
But people will start to quote third and fourth generation information, and then it just gets all gobbledygook.
Oh, yeah. That's the scary part, you know. And since we talked, you know, my host on Saturday, Michael W. Hall, we call him the paranormal lawyer. He was actually a judge, a superior court judge in Washington State. He's a practicing attorney, and he runs a group called the UFO I-Team. And I had him on my show, you know, just talking about his experience. He went up to Mount Adams, I think the 27th, 28th, and 29th of August. Some strange things happened to him. And if you don't mind, I'd like to, you know, talk about it for about 3 or 4 minutes, because I think it's really interesting. Well, they got there, and the first night they saw some interesting things in the sky. They had the equipment, the infrared cameras, you name it, they got it, because that's what they do, is investigate. Later that night, it was getting kind of late, they noticed this, like, light coming towards them and stops. And it kind of pulsates. And a lot of the witnesses that were there said that they swear they saw a blue, like, flash come out at them off the side of it. Now, okay, I find that kind of strange. Well, later that night, Michael decides to go to bed. He's sharing a camper trailer with another person. He uses a sleep device, you know, one of those things that help you breathe at night, and it's computerized.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the middle of the night, some strange things started happening. Like, all of a sudden, it shut off. He woke up because the alarm went off. And so he decides, you know, hey, we need to change the battery. So they changed the battery on it. You know, it's a Marine 12-volt battery. It powered it. The weather was cold, you know, up Mount Adams that time of night. So he decides he's going to go to the bathroom, which they had a porta potty next to the trailer outside. And he decides to go there, and he just went in there to, you know, just for a minute. He thinks. Well, when he comes back, you know, all of a sudden, you know, when he wakes up, he notices by the computer, and his friend said, well, you were gone for an hour and a half. There was no counting for the time. He just went outside to go pee, comes back, and it's an hour and a half later, which I kind of found kind of strange. Now,
actually, that's a very common thing if people are abducted.
Yeah, well, it gets even stranger. Now, one of the other guys with his son, it was so cold that he decided he's going to go sleep in his car instead of the tent. That way they can kick the heater on and off on the car. Now, the car is a 2-year-old car. So, you know, the battery, I would say, would be good. Well, you know, he went out in the car. He started the motor ever so often to heat it up. And all of a sudden, the car wouldn't start. Okay, now I kind of debunk that part of it, because I know batteries, when they get cold, they get non-efficient. But in the morning, the car started right up. Now, all of a sudden, one of the guys walked by with a compass, and it's going crazy. So they get out their gear, and this car, all of a sudden, now is magnetized. Just like a bar magnet, north and south.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured, okay, so they moved the car out of the parking area. Where the car was parked, no problem. Not at all. Okay, they checked the car again. It's magnetized, heavy. So the guy then takes it to the dealership because he can't figure out why all of a sudden his car is magnetized. The dealership, you know, checks it over, and then it really messes with their mind. So they go through their whole, lot checking cars. Not a single car they checked was magnetized. Now, the funny thing is, that same morning after this happened, Michael noticed a triangle on his left wrist of, like puncher things. Now, he didn't really think that much of it till we started talking on the show. And I said, hey, do me a favor, Michael. I said, do you have a compass? And he went and got his compass. I said, okay, place it near your left wrist. It went crazy. I said, okay, place it by your right wrist. Nothing. Then the other issue, he wore steel-tip boots. I said, okay, check your boots. The left boot was magnetized. His right one wasn't. Now, one other thing that's really strange about this story, which it's really strange, he has a watch. It's phosphorus coated. So, when you're out in bright light and you go into a dark room, for about a half an hour it glows. And then it, fades out. Now, when his machine went off and the alarm went off, he got up. And then he's been already sleeping like 3 hours when this happened. His watch was glowing brighter than it ever glowed. I find this whole situation really creepy.
In one way or another, he was being affected by a shift. There's no doubt about it, from what you're telling me.
Oh, yeah.
The missing time, the magnetic effects, the motor's not working, that becomes almost, standard for many, many abductions.
Well, that's what I thought, too, and also like the pulsating light on what stopped above them, and they were all looking at, and then like a laser blue light coming out of the side of it. I just wonder if they were scanned or whatever happened, because, I really don't think even that car was magnetized. It seems like whatever happened, that car became magnetized that night. His boot, which, he was probably 100 feet away from the car in that trailer, all of a sudden his boot becomes magnetized, his steel toe in the boot, and his wrist. And I can't figure, and I told him he needs to go get that x-rayed because, unless there's metal in there, I don't see how a compass would go crazy, if it wasn't something there.
Is that where the mark was on his arm?
Yeah, on the left side.
Yeah, well, they may have put a small implant in there.
That's what I'm
tracking device.
Yeah.
And the advice you should really give him is to seek out, somebody like a Dr. Lear, who no longer is living, but somebody who would be open-minded and understand what they might discover. If you get just an ordinary doctor, they're not necessarily going to be the least bit understanding of a person's situation.
Well, they might give you some tranquilizers and tell you to take it easy.
You won't get your answers that way, though.
No, you won't. No, but I'm saying that they're going to brush you off and look at you like you got a problem. That's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he just needs to ask around and maybe go through some of these channels with, through the ET network and find somebody who would be a good person to go to.
Yeah, one of the people.
You don't want to send somebody just out there and have them end up in a loony farm because medical people sometimes can't get past traditional ways of thinking.
Oh, tell me about that. I mean, I thank God, like with Timothy Cullen, when he went into the doctor, he found a doctor right off the bat. It detected something in him and mentioned he should go see Dr. Roger Lear. So, I mean, but the average doctor was going to look, if you say, hey, I think I was abducted, the first thing they're going to start thinking, okay, this guy's a little strange, and start looking at other issues.
They'll give you psychiatric medicine.
Oh, yeah, and then send you home.
Right. So don't just go send him anywhere. Make sure he's going to somebody who can really help him. And it's too bad Dr. Lear is no longer living, and it's too bad there hasn't been somebody or people who have, to fill his space, really.
Well, we really need it because I got a funny feeling there's a lot of people being abducted. They know they're being abducted, but they have no way to prove it because they're scared. They're scared to go to the ER or go to their family doctor and say, hey, look, I think I was abducted. I think I had an implant put in. The credibility with their job, is enough to, scare most people away from saying anything.
And it's also hard to find people like Barbara Lamb who can use hypnosis to help people deal with the traumas that they have been through if they've had those kind of experiences. I do not think abduction experiences are are good.